Howdy folks, and welcome back to the Practical Microservices stream. Realize I don't have the chat up and visible, so let's fix that real quick. Yay, now it's visible. So let's see here. Got sick and thought I was better last week, but not quite. Got a little bit worse, but back in the seat here today. So let's jump in here. What are we after doing today? Well, we are trying to get Eventide and a Rails application integrated with one another. And really the goal is we're porting the video tutorials code from Practical Microservices, which, you know, of course, if you want more information about, Nightbot will supply that info for you. But as part of that, there has to be some user-facing component of it that can respond to user input and take appropriate action. And with Eventide being based in Ruby, Rails being the big behemoth in the HTTP server space in the Ruby world, going to do that with Rails. And so the question is, well, how do you integrate Rails with it? Because one of the things that's going to happen with that is a lot of the standard Rails conventions we're not going to use. We're not going to have active record models writing data to rows in the database in the same way that standard Rails would do that. And so how do we then receive input from the user? How do we paint the screen that they do that with and validate the input that they give, etc.? So that's kind of what I want to explore today, is using ActiveModel, which is, I've got the guide right here. It says, that ActiveModel contains various modules used in developing classes that need some features present on Active Record. So one thing that I really have enjoyed about Rails, even as I've thought more in terms of systems architecture than just MVC application architecture, is the way that the view helpers work, how you can instantiate an object in your controller. And then it works very seamlessly with the rendering of forms and whatnot to present errors and all that kind of good stuff. And so I think, if I'm remembering correctly, that if you had an ActiveModel object, you could get those same form benefits that you would have if you were using Active Record. And so maybe that's a good place to put the validation stuff, to use that to capture the email address and password that we're going to receive. Another potential thing that we could do, though, is change the way the validation of the email uniqueness. Wow, that is just some fantastic English right there. Is done. Now, how is it currently done? Let's have a look at it. It's got some things that make me uneasy. I wouldn't want to do these same things necessarily in a production application. But if we go to where we actually do the registering, I guess that's this file here on the right. We're going to hit this action, as it's called, or handler function, handle register user, which calls into this, I called them actions. And it receives the trace ID from the request, as well as the attributes that we care about. And what are those attributes? The user ID that is present in the body, the email address that the user is registering with, and the password. And so what we do then is, as part of that action, is we're going to load to see if there is an existing identity. And so if we open that file, the convention throughout the book was whenever you see load whatever in one of these promise chains, that function would attach a property to the context called everything after load. And so it does a query by email. And so what it's going to do, we can come down to that function right here, the user credentials table, which, remember, is the aggregated output of the component. So the registration component, or the register user, the identity component as it's called, is authoritative over what emails have been taken and what emails haven't been. But it doesn't actually protect against a duplication there. As the owner of that uniqueness, it doesn't do its job. Now, the reasoning I gave in the book for that was that it would be very unlikely for two different people to try to register with the same email address in a short enough window of time that you would get a duplicate through there. And I, especially for how low traffic this particular site is, that's true. But I don't like to rest on it'll probably work. I want better than that. And so we may do our first integration by not by changing the design of the system, which is something I said we weren't going to do. And we might not in this first pass. Maybe we don't do that, but it's something to keep in mind. So let's see. So change system design to have application layer validate uniqueness. And how would we do that? The basic strategy for that is we have access to Eventide in a Rails controller action. I mean, those are just HTTP handlers, right? There's nothing magical about them. And so Eventide being a collection of Ruby gems, we can pull those Ruby gems in and use them. And so a controller could write to a stream with an expected version of -1. So that's where we saw write dot initial. This is how the reservation pattern works. We don't actually have any code with the reservation pattern in there, but we did a walkthrough on it a while ago. But MessageDB being backed by Postgres, it can handle optimistic concurrency. And so when we go to write a message, wait, this is more than just a reservation pattern. We use it all the time for concurrency protection. But that special use of where let's go to some code where we've used it, shall we? Instead of where would be an example of that? So if we go to practical microservices and one of these components here, I think send email component will have an example of it. So let's see, do we have a test? Yeah, okay, great. So if we go to lib send email component handlers commands expected. So here's an example. So in this in this handler here, message handler, not HTTP handler, we are writing a message and supplying an expected version. But every time we've done that thus far, we have had a variable expected version because we want whatever the entity was when we projected it and then made our decision of whether or not to proceed. We are saying that is our expected version. So what I'm saying here is something a little bit different. We're always going to say we expect a version of -1. So if we had that controller responsible for consuming the email addresses, what could it do? Well, it could validate the username, password. Did we put any sorts of those checks in the book? Let's check. So we do have this validate in here, which I'm guessing is a separate file because consistency. So where did it go? Validate, my friend, where are you? There you are. Okay. So we expected there to be an email and that the password is at least of length 8. That's superficial. In our system, we're saying identities must have those two properties. The only place we enforce them, though, is up at this application layer. We could validate it in the identity component. That would require additional messages for communicating that say, oh, that email is taken or whatnot. And maybe that's what we do instead. But what I'm getting at is that the controller actually can do the validation, the superficial validation that the username is, I guess it's an email address. We could validate that it is an actual email address because that has nothing to do with the state of our system. And we could validate that the password has 8 characters in it, or whatever scheme you want to have for validating a password. Okay, then, so it has validated. And at this point in its flow, we're saying, yes, we have an email address and a sufficiently long password. So then what it could do is write to a stream whose ID is based on the email address. So probably wouldn't make the email address itself the identifier in there because of right to be forgotten reasons. We could hash it though, take a hash of that email address and try to write to a stream that's like email address dash the hash with an expected version of -1. And if that succeeds, then that means that we have successfully registered that user. Or maybe that's the wrong thing, is right now the identities have a unique identifier to, like a UID is what we use to identify those. What if that hashed email address were the identifier for the stream instead? We could make a v5 UUID out of it. And I kind of like where this is going. So there is absolutely nothing wrong with an application owning a stream. Maybe a v5 of the email address. But I not use the shorthand. So it would be something like, I don't know, email address, and then 123. No, come on, son. 123 is my stand-in for a UUID. Okay, cool. So email address this with this password has been consumed, and then potentially, so the other step of our registration is that we send a welcome email to people when they sign up for the site. Now, the controller, if it did this right to the message store and then was also responsible for writing or sending that email, well, we can't do that atomically anymore. I don't trust that. So if we just consume that, then the identity component could be changed to pick that up and make an identity for it and all of that kind of good stuff. And it could just resume as it was. Alternatively, add more error handling to the identity component. Kind of like how we did with the video publishing component, where you submit a name and we take you to that screen where it's like, hey, we're checking to see if this has completed yet. Registration could work the same way. You submit what you want to register with, and we later encounter, did it work or not? Both of these remedies, though, I think are beyond the scope of just the initial port. That's something I want to come back to right away when we're done with the port of the book as is. Yeah, all right, keep the scope simple. We're not going to fix the design error in the first pass. So our focus needs to be just on replicating the functionality that's there. And so we'll do the superficial validation to make sure we actually got an email address and that there's a password of at least length 8. From that, we'll write a command to the identity component and the rest of the system will flow as expected. Then we can come back and refactor and see where that goes. And that might lead to an interesting thing of changing ownership of a certain operation. It might mean adding the additional messages to make the message handling work. All right, so let me write this down. Decision made. We won't fix the design issue. Just make it work as before. Okay, that was worthwhile. So let's come back to our Rails application here. And that is exactly what we're not going to do, because registration is not creating a user. I stand by the book's discussion on that. You did not call a user into existence when someone registers for your site. That user existed well before arriving at your site. So you might have created a record for them, I guess, but they registered, they took an action. And so what I'd like to do here is get something that but we want to represent the registration that's happening. So whatever we make, it's going to be a registration, not a user registration.new. So that's what we want to have. We don't have this class defined. I've not made just straight up active models before, and so I'm not sure. Like, I want to render into Rails that which is Rails is. And so would you put those in the models directory, or is that strictly for active record objects? See what the internet has to say. Rails, where do you put active model classes? Not active record callbacks, active model modules. Maybe this is service objects. I don't like that term at all. Right. They say it's a Poro class designed to wrap up complex business logic in your application, which sounds to me like a behavior, a process, which is just what objects are. Don't need this modifier on there because that's what objects are by default, and not data representations like ORM objects. Anyway, sometimes a Poro service just won't cut it. So active model modules. So they're putting it in a services folder. Services doesn't sound right because it's not a service. It's just an object. I'm going to put it in active models. I suppose the internet can sue me if that's the wrong place for it. So we're going to put register. Is it register or register user? What else do we register? We're going to call it register. Did I just... Curses. I pressed the U button, which apparently navigates your whole thing up one directory, which I didn't want. What's the opposite of U in there? It wasn't that. All right, let's just close this all and restart it. Sometime I'll learn that Vim thing there. So let's see. We were working on our register users controller, and we have this register model. So we could say class register, and you inherit from, what do you inherit from? Is it just active model? Or is it not done through inheritance? That would be even better. Oh, it looks like. But you do it through a mixin. And you pick all of the ones that you want. Interesting. What's conversion? Rails conversion methods. Oh, I see. Okay. Dirty. So what am I really after? I'm after the validations, right? So where did that one go? Validations. Oh, I see. It's an ActiveModel API that gives us access to that. So let's grab that little include statement right there. I am very much not doing this TDD right now. Probably should be. Let's do it the right way, shall we? That was mostly because I felt like I was just exploring things, but do that with test. I just realized my font size is really small too. Okay, let me make that a little bit bigger. Hopefully that's more legible. So here are our tests. Wow, there's so many folders. What do these controller tests look like? Could use RSpec. I don't want to. I do not want to use RSpec. So I also don't like the organization of these because it pushes you into having loads and loads of tests in the same file. And I don't like that. System test, model test, mailer test, integration test. What's the difference between a system and an integration test, I wonder? I don't know the answer to that. When I got into this, you had unit tests, which were typically stuff that dealt with the Rails model classes. There were functional tests, which were, I guess, are called controller tests now, and then integration tests, which not sure what the distinction was, but here we go. Don't remember. It's been a while. So these distinctions don't make a lot of sense to me. But is there any value in doing specs? No, I don't think so. So if we're gonna have controllers, let's make a register users directory there. Excuse me. If I called the controller register users, I think the model or this class should be called the same thing or have a similar name. Uh-oh, what'd I do? Wow, okay, wait a second. Just get out of there. Register user, there we go. I'll call that register user. Like so, and then comment that out and save it so that, I guess I didn't need to comment out this whole file, did I? That's right. There, like so. And we are going to get rid of this file, the register users controller test there. And what we want to test is that, I guess that we can hit the new endpoint and it doesn't crash. So let's say we'll do new.rb, and I don't know what this boilerplate should look like. So I'm going to put that in there. And then we can get rid of that test file right there. Now, how do we run these? Is it still, see if I remember this one. Back in the day, it would have been rake test unit. So it would be Rails test controller. No. Controllers, maybe pluralize it. Hey, look, there we go. So user credentials already exist. Skipping. That is because of the way that the gem that we made puts that in place. It would seem that there's a way to silence that I didn't put in, but we'll deal. No, don't deal with it. Fix it. You get something you don't want, don't let it sit and linger. So let's see. There's a way to shut this off. And so if we go Postgres, that specific, and we want to silence that. And this looks familiar. Set client min messages to warning. That I think is what we want. And then if we came back to our user credentials aggregator and into the schema file, once we get our session established, we could then session execute that. And we will do double quotes because this is my project and I can. So we come back to this and we run that. Woohoo. Okay, cool. So that ran. Nothing broke yet. So test the truth. Sure, let's do it. Didn't pick it up. Is that because it's not in? Can you have subdirectory? So Rails controller tests subdirectories. Sub directory. Are you not allowed to do this? So can you do this without making new rake tasks? Does it not go Rails test controllers? Does it not go into subdirectories? using the older approach of mocking out the whole framework with no longer recommended. Implementing an integration test. That's fine. I don't mind making an integration test instead of the others. But I would just like to not have to put them all in a single directory. So let's follow the guide here and see if we can do that. So Rails generate integration test. New registration. So what did that put in place for us? There it is. Let us open that file real quick and see if we can get that to run. Rails test integration. Okay, test ran, that's cool. Now if we said register users, put that in there, and then we move you. Oh, it's probably because it didn't have the word test in its file name. Sorry, I'm just curious about this. Let's move this one and call it new test, like so. Cannot write. You can't write. Yes, replace it. Oh, I need to fix that bug. Oh, neat. Got some spam. All right. Dogehype.com. That sounds completely legit. So let's see something here. Let's find Nightbot and commands. Default. What can you do? Filters, marker, channel regulars. How do you ban somebody? Twitch, ban user from chat. Use your ban button directly in chat. Pin this message, click to reply. I don't see any such message here. Here, let's I'll just do this here. Twitch ban user. I wouldn't say it was harassment, it was just one spam thing, but remove them from your followers, block whispers from strangers, clear chat. Chat bans. Here we go. If you're the channel owner or channel moderator, you can ban someone from your chat. This will prevent the user from appearing in your chatters list, and they will be unable to view or participate in chat. You can see a list of any banned users in your moderation settings 3 ways. Click the ban user button directly in chat. Click the ban button on the user badge that appears when you click on the username. So, oh, neat. There we go. Timeout. No, that's not good enough. Let's just go ahead and ban. There we go. Neat. Okay, so yeah, I'm not going to get upset with anyone doing a hustle. I just doubt that was genuine, and you know, contact me via other means, not in the middle of a stream. So let's see here. What were we doing? Lost the train of thought a little bit there. You know, maybe it also didn't run because this was commented out. A new registration test. Which one is which? I think this one's the integration test. So let's try to rerun the controllers. Ha, you do it. Okay, yeah. So I just had the word. Didn't have the word test as part of the file name, and it didn't like that. So anyway, I don't know. We don't have to break from the orthodoxy in every single way, though. So one search that I did found that said that you're supposed to do integration test. So let's do it, shall we? So let's get you moved to new test under register users, like so. Yes, please replace the buffer so we don't do that wrong. So then this would be, wow. So the name of the class consumes the entire, or it consumes things from the global namespace. Can we put these inside of a module? So it could be like register users, and then in there, that's going to conflict with the controller name though, isn't it? Why did you not save? Can't open. What? Okay, fine. Let's close you and then open this one. Here we go. New registration test. Oh, register users controller is what that is called. So we could say module. I don't know. Or we could say register users tests. Because like this is basically in test bench, I would have had a context blah at the very top of it, but need to follow at least some of the conventions here. So we can have new tests in there. Will that run? Is it gonna, not controllers? That wouldn't be right. We want test integration. Hey, it looks like it did pick it up. So if I said assert false, do you now fail? It does. Great. Okay, so this test is getting hit. So we want to get, oh, I don't want to type that in directly though. So let's see what our routes available to us are. Is it Rails routes? It is. Okay, so let's see. Wow, conductor inbound email source. That's a lot of routes that I don't even know what those are for. So we do have a register path there. So would it just be register path? Seems to be. So now let's do something that we know will fail. And so register user.new. Tell me no class to backgrounded it again. Neat. Name error. There is no constant named register user. Fantastic. That's what I wanted to see. But now if we go like you and you and you, now it should pass again. Great. I'm happy about that. So now then, this test passes if that doesn't fail. That's not enough. We'll actually need to check that the form is set up correctly, but I'm going to close the test file for right now just so we have some more space on the screen. And let's go back to the Rails guide here. And so we need to put our attributes that we care about in place. So we would expect to have an ID, an email, and a password. And at this point, that is the actual password in plain text. We will hash it, of course, before we save it, but for our purposes, we do need it to actually test it. So now our validations, we want to validate that. I suppose they all need to be present, right? Oh, I don't remember. If you have multiple validations for the same thing, can you put those in? Like, would it be a line per attribute and then you could put all of its validations in there? Password. And then this one would just be a D if that's the case. So let's see here. Rails validations. Active record validations. Format. Huh, interesting. So what? If I type email, does that bring up anything? Oh, yeah, we're not going to do email confirmation. I think that's silly. Uh, is it silly though when that's their username? Whatever. Not going to deal with that. So these are not good. Yeah, it'd be possible to update with a duplicated. Yeah. You query. Oh, hey, One Punch Pickle. We're using Ruby in this right now. And furthermore, using the Rails framework to make an HTTP server and just try to do an endpoint right now for registering new users for the site. The reason for using Ruby is the Microservices toolkit that is the overall thing that we're after here, taking the book that I wrote, taking its code and porting it to the Eventide project, as it's called. That's a Ruby-based toolkit and is the best tooling I've ever come across for making microservices-based projects. Because that's in Ruby, we can get some nice interplay. I hate to use the word synergy, but I'm going to use it. The synergy between the microservices and the HTTP servers if they're in the same language. So yeah, it's Ruby, but then Rails adds some things here that wouldn't be, it's not that they're not standard, it's just they're not part of the language. So class register, that's part of the language. Include this module, that's Ruby. Adder accessor here, that's just how you declare onto a class. The class should have these properties, give me getters and setters for them. That's shorthand for doing that. But this validates method call here, that came from having included ActiveModel API. So Ruby is the language and Ruby on Rails is the web framework that we're working with right now. I'm gonna figure out what languages are what, because I'm gonna create an antivirus software for people. That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, antivirus software. Would Ruby be a good language for that, I wonder? It could certainly do the work. Ruby is not the fastest executing language on the planet. It's designed, its chief aim was for developer happiness. The guy who made it, his name is Matt, and that's what he was going for, to just make it a pleasant language to work with. Would antivirus software need performance that Ruby can't provide? I don't know. I've never written antivirus software, so that's cool that you're after that. That, to me, like, I don't know, like, the programming world sometimes gets referred to as the high-tech sector, yet so many apps that we make are just receive some data, store it in a database, and display it on a screen. I don't consider that high-tech, but there's like certain kinds of programming that are like, I look up at them and like, wow, that's what smart people do. And antivirus software is one of those that I would say, because that's complicated. The people who write compilers for languages are in that same camp, in my opinion. I'm not in that camp. So does that mean I don't think I'm smart? Take from that what you will. I'm not going to answer the question. So as part of these very in-depth applications that receive data and need to store things in a database, we want to validate that the data that we were supplied is accurate. And so I'm trying to find out, does Rails give me the ability to say, hey, this thing is an email? Can you make sure that it actually is an email address? You're saying you're not smart either, but first things, got to go big or go home. Yeah, no kidding, right? Swing for the fences. I like that. Good luck with that project. That would be an interesting one to follow. All right, so let's come back to our Rails documentation here. And I guess just out of curiosity, I'll go big, go home. There's lots of projects you could do that would be go big or go home. Why antivirus software? Like, what about that really speaks to you? It's going silent to give you a chance to answer. That's okay if you don't want to, though. Maybe you're typing it. The like for better or for worse, the Twitch chat thing doesn't do that. So and so is typing, which I don't enjoy that. Oh, got a virus the other day and had to search for a way to get rid of it. Yeah, virus writers are also in that camp of like, that's incredible work. But so got the pain of it, and so you would like to help rid the world of that. That's really awesome. According to the Stack Overflow answer from 4.5 years ago, there is an email regular expression built into Ruby. So let us see if that's the case. Oh, let's see. Do I have to require URI? And then does that work? Hey, look at that. We've got a regular expression that can tell us if something is an email address. So, you know what though, for this particular test, I don't need that validation yet. So in fact, let's turn off everything that we have here. The goal was just to see if we could render the page effectively. And we can't anymore. What just happened? Oh, you need to supply at least one validation. Right. So let's just comment those out as well. What's your experience in programming? One Punch Pickle. Have you written some things before, or just getting into programming with that? So let's see here. We've got this register user declared here. So we would go to app. Oh, it's up here. App views, register users, new. Here is our view for this. So in theory, we could say, oh, wait a second. There are helpers for this. Form for register user. No experience at all. Okay. Yeah. Huh. So let's see. What would be good? I don't know. Have you looked into resources for learning all the basic stuff? Like, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. If someone were going to start learning today, what would I point them towards? There's like boot camps and stuff, but those are costly. And I don't know that there are any boot camps for learning how to make antivirus software. But there's resources like Codecademy or something. They might be good. Codecademy. Yeah, that's a potential resource. I don't even know if you're looking for those, but that's just what came to mind when you mentioned that. It's a fantastic journey. Really enjoy programming. The profession of being a programmer can be frustrating at times, but the actual act of it's pure creation, as they say. I enjoy it. So I do not remember my Rails form helpers either. So what you'll get to see today is me struggling through things that I used to remember how to do. So there we go. The main form helper is form with. Oh, right on. In their Discord server. Yeah, that's a neat thing that a lot of universities have been doing, is making that kind of stuff more available like that. It's scary asking questions, probably like afraid of asking a question and then people being like, oh, that's a dumb question. Having been in the biz for a while, I don't know, my perspective on this is I've never worked with a more junior colleague who asked a question where I was like, that was a dumb question. I wish you hadn't asked it. When someone's sincerely trying to learn, most people who do what programmers do are just really excited. Like, whoa, someone wants to know something that I know the answer to. I'm very happy to share that. So, I don't know. Just maybe a little nudge, be like, don't be afraid to ask. I don't know if it's like for if you're going there or what, or if it's just like something they've opened to the public. I guess that's an assumption I made earlier. But if it is just a general like 50 level class, I'm sure that like it's expected. Hey, we have people who haven't been doing this for 20 years taking the class. So, okay, cool. Yeah, I remember when like edX got started a while ago, and I think like MIT and some other of the elite institutions collaborated on making those kinds of things available to the public. I did an AI one once. It was pretty fun. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. Don't be afraid to ask. That's what I would say. Complete random person on the internet telling you what you should and should not do. Take that for what it's worth. But like some of the best learning I've done was asking questions that demonstrated a lack of understanding, because that's why I'm asking the question, is so that I can learn. But anyway, I will stop telling you what to do. Sorry about that. All right, so this main form helper here is form with, but how does it know what it's making the form for? Doesn't it need, like, is there an assumption about what the variable that we're working with is? So form with model nil. What happens if you, oh, maybe it's it doesn't have a model if you do it that way. So let's go really think. Yeah, exactly right. All the best life advice comes from Twitch streams. Oh man. Okay, so let's see here. So this is telling me this should be form with, and that first parameter is a named one, not positional. So we would say that our model for this would be register user. And then, oh, and then let's see, this is a block. So there would be do, and then form is the object that gets passed to our block. And then to close said block, we would have an end. All right, if all goes as planned, I'm going to comment out this pug conversion that I did earlier. Why? Oh, because oh, right. Get rid of that one, and oh my goodness. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to leave the duplicate form in there for now. That's fine. Excuse me. All right, let's rerun this test. And come on, no crashes. Oh, it crashed. Undefined method, register user's path. Wait, didn't I just do that? And it worked? Clearly not, because it's not working. So let's open the test again. So test integration, register users, new test. Oh, no. Okay, that worked. Oh, neat. But the model name didn't match the path that we're after, the route that we're after. So there's no register users path. I think that's because in config routes, we just have this get register here. And that doesn't have a name. So maybe what I could do... Oh. 14 and homeschooled. Right on. That's cool. To learn unique stuff might help me later down. Sure. No, I mean, coding's a great thing to learn, especially at a young age like that. When you've got time, once I got older, time didn't have as much of it. So yeah, I don't know. It's a good path. What got me interested in programming back in the day was game programming. I was like, I want to be a game developer. I don't want to be a game developer anymore, not professionally. It's a difficult industry to be in, but a lot of long hours. So yeah, good luck with it. You're always free to ask programming related questions as well. Oh, cool. What game? Or what's the game about? Always wanted to make a Stardew Valley inspired game, but that's big and ambitious. Best I ever did was Tetris. Parkour game. So would it be like in the spirit of like Tony Hawk skateboarding, but for parkour instead of skateboarding? Yeah, register. You have to beat the game as fast as possible. What will you do in the game? Didn't like that there no slash or register, but if I have resource, right. Let's see, where do I have that Rails routing guide open? Not there. That was just a bunch of errors. So let's see, Rails routing. Rails routing from the outside in. So if you do get, does that give you, wait, I just had that output right here, didn't I? That was silly. Let's go like that and run this Rails routes again and see if there is a helper for my single named route there. Is it register path? Yeah, that's working. Register path, but the test is complaining because there's no register. Oh, that was the same thing I just ran. Got to jump from item to item while you're floating in space. I'm trying to make a vaulting animation and a climbing animation. Right on. Are you using something like Unreal or Unity for that? Or I guess like what game engine, graphics engine type of a thing are you using? Unity, right on. Unity's good stuff. I've played with it a little bit, but never completed a project. That's awesome. I'm laughing because just thinking of I made a game when I was in high school. It's called Quad Hopper Stopper, because I originally had a game called Hick Hunter because I was a transplant to a rural area, California, and was a total tool about it. And then got into an argument with some friends about who got the name Hick Hunter. And so it was like this ASCII art. One of you had a laser sword because lightsabers are trademarked by Lucasfilm, and the other had a shotgun. And so you would, I don't know, it was silly. Tag, also made a tag game. A lot of fun. Right now I'm trying to get some URL routes to work. So there's no register users path. That's fine, and I understand that. It was fun making it. GW Basic. There is a language I wouldn't recommend using today for antivirus software or much of anything else. This form helper is trying to... Did I just close that? All right, keep that one open. Let's close the routing one. This form helper here... Oh, I see. So I can set the URL myself because my route's name doesn't match the model's name. So if I go like model that, and URL would be the register path, like so. Does that work now? Hey, look at that. So we're making progress. So in theory, I'm just going to delete all of that real quick. And let's actually, the server is running. And we'll hit localhost 3000 register. Mostly a blank page, that's fine. But using the dev tools, here's a form. Look at that. Method post. I'm really happy about that. This reminds me of when I first started doing Rails development and got anything working. All right, so with that in place, then it'd be like form.hidden. Let's see, Rails form helper hidden field. I don't like this API doc website, but yes, hidden field. Wait a second. Do you call that on the form or what? And a form for f.hidden field. Yes, that is exactly what you do. So if we said form.hidden, is that just hidden? Hidden field. Like so, and that would be the ID field. Right, ID. And how do you give it? You wouldn't need to explicitly give it a value. All right, so with that in place, I don't want to keep deleting this and undeleting it. So when I reload the page, a bunch of form is going to appear, but that is not actually the right form yet. Where did the server go? Here we go. So we'll look at the dev tools again, and this form is the hand-coded one. This is the one generated by the form helper. So we've got a hidden field with register user ID. Neat. Okay, it doesn't have a value because we're not supplying it one, and that's fine. Is there a way to give it a default value within the active model? Probably. We'll figure that out later. But now what I want to do is a form.text field for the email. Let's say neat. There it is, but that looks pretty not good. So how do you change the classes used on there? Let's see. Rails form helper. Is there a way to optional HTML class attribute? There we go. So on this field, if we said class, and I think that you would just do text like that. So what do we have on the email one? Just form control is it? So if we say we need to take advantage of the bootstrap form control, there we go. And hey, now that looks like the other one. That's great, but it has no placeholder. Is that just placeholder email like so? It is. Look at that. Okay, neat. Okay, that's progress. I've got to stop the stream now because it's 1 o'clock and I have a job to get back to. But thanks for joining, One Punch Pickle, and anyone else who's there as well. I'm pleased with the progress. Might be a little bit of an overstatement, but this Rail stuff is coming back to me, so that's good. Next time, which will probably be tomorrow, we'll get in the password field and hopefully get to the point where we can actually submit this form back to the server. And then from there, do our superficial validation, get all that tested, and then add into it actually calling the Eventide stuff to write messages to our message store. Did I win, Aspie Ditto? Welcome back. You know, it was more of a base hit episode than it was a Grand Slam kind of an episode. So, making progress, and at the end of the day, that's all I could really ask for. So, I don't know, folks. Have a good one. And as always, happy coding. One Punch Pickle, good luck in your studies. See you all later.